Trump won big last week, but the only people surprised are the liberals.
On Tuesday, Americans went to the polls and elected Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States.
To many people, including many people watching this show right now, the results were shocking and even horrifying.
Donald Trump, who tried to forcibly overturn the results of the last election, was returned to office by an overwhelming majority.
This is the same Donald Trump who openly called for vengeance against his political enemies.
And now, thanks to the Supreme Court, there are no guardrails.
I kept waiting for the laugh track. I'm not one to gloat, but how can you not? They simply cannot believe that Trump managed to, quote, old blue eyes, through it all when there was doubt, win again. The leftist elite again, cloistered in their coastal elite silos, underestimated Donald Trump and undercounted what the American people wanted.
I was wrong. We'll continue to be wrong.
Liberals are dumbfounded, and they'll sputter. But the polls! They did not see a Trump landslide, a mandate at the scale that actually happened. But the rest of us in real America did. What happens to the polling industry now? Jen McLaughlin of McLaughlin and Associates Polls joins us now. You guys have been more on the right side than on the wrong. But what say you? Where do the pollsters go from here?
You know what the crazy part is? They weren't as bad as they were probably back in 2016 and 2020, in all fairness. And I know you saw the email we put out, the memo, I should say, we put out a few weeks before Election Day, where we had Donald Trump ahead in all the battleground states. So, and things actually got better from there, because what few undecideds there were, we knew if they did show up to vote, they were going to be more likely to vote for Donald Trump. And I think you see in that in the exit polls where they're saying the late deciders were more likely to vote for Donald Trump. But look, I just think a lot of folks are really, really out of touch in terms of what was going on in America. You know, I tell people this all the time. When we're doing focus groups, Chanel, when I would tell voters, and when I'm moderating a focus group, I try to be as fair as possible, independent as possible, et cetera. We're telling these swing voters that, inflation has dropped down to under 4%, and inflation since Joe Biden became president was only about 20%. They would get visibly angry at you because at me as the moderator for saying, hey, inflation is a lot higher than that. And then you had the Democrats, a lot of the elitists at the Washington Post, the New York Times, they were telling us, oh, how great the economy was. But the American people didn't feel that way. And that's why we had the result that we had.
I think you're right. The doubling down on the left, trying to beat on the head of everybody that, no, you're not having trouble at the grocery store. Ignore the numbers. We're doing fine. It really does. It does have a tendency to rub people the wrong way. Don't believe your lying eyes, your lying wallet. Not a winning message. That said, here's what Obama speechwriter and advisor John Favreau said in the wake of a Kamala collapse on his podcast, Pod Save America. Take a listen.
Joe Biden's decision to run for president again was a catastrophic mistake. It just was. And he and his inner circle, they refused to believe the polls. They refused to believe he was unpopular. They refused to acknowledge until very late that anyone could be upset about inflation. And they just kept telling us that his presidency was historic and it was the greatest economy ever. We just heard him again say that it's the greatest economy ever. Clearly, 70, 80% of voters don't believe that. They don't believe that about their own personal financial situation, but they just keep telling us that. And then after the debate, the Biden people told us that the polls were fine. And Biden was still the strongest candidate. They were privately telling reporters at the time that Kamala Harris couldn't win. So they were shivving Kamala Harris to reporters.
So that's about as close as I have heard to the other side really kind of touching on why they lost.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.